not engage in conflict that was out of line with our mission.
Is it disloyal? Is it treason to a fatherland? Tyranny? Never!
I will never send troops anywhere on a mission of that kind without telling them that if somebody shoots at them, they can darn well shoot back.
I know not what course others will take. But as for me, give me liberty! Oh, give me death!
A dark cloud is finally lifting across the world as U.S. military intelligence and their global partners are destroying the deep state criminal power structure that has ruled over our planet for hundreds of years.
We are free with the God-given freedom, and we shall not give that right to any power on earth.
Hi, I'm Scott McKay. The world is at, and I am your host on The Tipping Point on Revolution Radio, where every Monday from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, we bring you the latest in this ensuing takedown of this global criminal empire.
That's an image of strength.
You'll get the raw, hard truth here on The Tipping Point. So come join us Mondays, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern in studio feed at revolution.radio.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio.
Adapt 2030 Mini Ice Age Conversations covers changes in our climate due to a new and intensifying grand solar minimum, and the media overlooking, downplaying, or burying cold weather changes occurring on our planet. This is in order to keep the global warming agenda steaming full speed ahead. I do this podcast and radio program because we need to begin conversations on how to adapt our food growing strategies long before 2030 as agricultural zones shift, affecting global crop output, but very few mainstream media outlets are talking about the most important issue of our time, cold weather crop losses. Our sun is going through a 400-year cycle, which has effects on our weather patterns as our magnetosphere weakens and the jet streams go out of flow. It's not CO2, it's not you, it's the sun. Are you ready to thrive in the grand solar minimum? Then join me for Mini Ice Age Conversations. I'm your host, David DuByne, creator of the Adapt 2030 Mini Ice Age 2015 to 2035 video series. And I do welcome you this evening, this morning, this afternoon on the beautiful blue planet, wherever you reside. Take a deep breath, give thanks for being alive and experiencing another day in the chaos. Tonight I have with me Craig Simpson from Radiant Creators. Ransom's taking a little break tonight, but we're still streaming on Rumble, Odyssey, and we're going to be trying to get the BitChute live feed up. But anyway, thank you everybody for joining tonight, whoever's out there either on video or audio. Craig, I'm glad you joined me because a lot of things about finance. I was hearing through a couple birdies in the wind. I'll start the conversation here. I know some people up at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange who I've known for quite some time, like 15 years plus. We met at different times before they're even up there working in Chicago. It's just, You know how you go through life and you know people before they move to different jobs and you stay in contact and whatnot. But Chicago Mercantile Exchange and the Chicago Board of Exchange, the CBOE, this is where you take grain deliveries from your futures contract. If you're a company or maybe a feedstock lot or something, you'll take actual physical delivery of your grains, like thousands of tons, hundreds of thousands of tons of physical grain, and put it on a barge or put it on rail cars and move it to another place. Well, here, distant early warning from everybody out there. They have been told and are anticipating in the months of September and December. They're both called delivery months. So you can choose to turn in your contract and take physical delivery in September and December. Usually most people take to cash and they just roll it over and then make more money on the next contract. The actual amount of physical deliveries right now, it's under 5%. So what they've been distant early told is as we come into September and December, the most amount of physical delivery will take place ever recorded in the history of futures exchange trading. Problem is they don't have the corn or the wheat to cover that. There's actually going to be more physical takers than there will be physical supply on the planet. The problem gets into the banks get fined every day that there is not a delivery, and the farmer who has pledged their yields to that contract are fined every day if they don't deliver. So they're looking at a massive wipeout in farms. And I was told specifically, it does not matter. They're going to bid this to the moon to get physical delivery at any price, because banks are doing a ratio right now to see how much they'll have to pay for record crop pricing versus the amount of fines they're going to get every day. So if it's going to cost them $10 million in fines, but it's going to cost them $8 million to run up the food price, they're going to run it up. There's going to be no limit to the sky on this one. They're going to pay whatever it takes to get the physical product. Just an early warning, your food price is going to rise incredibly. And the very basis of the conversation was, for me, my question to them, do you think this markets are going to start to fracture when the physical delivery cannot be met and there's so many people clamoring to get the physical food? And that's a wild card. They don't know how the markets are going to hold together. Humpty Dumpty going to get broke on this one. Nobody will ever trust the futures market after this winter coming up and after this autumn. Now, part two of this whole thing is there's not enough barges on our lakes anymore to deliver, because normally if you took physical delivery, you would take it onto a barge on Lake Michigan and it would transit through some canal system, either up to Canada, out the St. Lawrence Seaway, over to the Mississippi, whatever direction it went, buyer takes it wherever they want it to go. They do not have enough barge traffic to even deliver on the average 5% right now. But it's not going to be a 5% actual delivery rate. It's going to be so far off the charts that it's like a Six Sigma event of deliveries that is going to take place. So far off of the most ever recorded ever that it is going to shatter everything that's ever been known about how things on a contract can be delivered or not. And also the rail cars have disappeared magically. They just don't know where all the rail cars are. They don't have enough rail car capacity or barge capacity to deliver for those who are coming in for delivery. So just don't know what's about to happen here, but that is what my conversations have been over this last 3 to 4 days. And Craig, welcome. I know that was a long intro there, since we're going to be talking about things crypto, things finance, things inflation, and how much it's going to cost people to live their life moving through the next 6 months. I thought I would kick us off with that. Ball's in your court. Craig Simpson, Radiant Creators.
That sounds awesome. Can you hear me over there?
What? Yes, I can hear you. You sound crispy clear. 5x5.
Oh, good. Okay, perfect. Well, you know what? Actually, while you were talking, I heard the first bit of that, and then the forces of evil attacked the computer that I was using, and it just totally dumped on me. It just lost it. So I had to switch computers, and I did not hear everything you said, which probably is an awkward way to start things, but here I am. I did make it. You know, today is the last day of Mercury retrograde around Eastern Standard Time. We do go Eastern Standard Time around 4 a.m. We do finally get over this recent Mercury retrograde, which has been about 2 weeks or so. At least for myself, it's been a definite introspective time. Wow. So since I didn't catch everything you said in the intro, and this is awkward, I'm just going to ask, hey, how was Mercury retrograde for you?
Well, I'm looking at the corn deliveries that are not going to be met or fulfilled on the Chicago Exchange. But then I'm also looking at this full set of information that's showing that we're going to be globally down about 35 to 40% for corn this year globally. And that includes Ukraine, but that also includes the global fertilizer shortage. So an introspective look myself is I'm getting more prepared than I've ever been. I'm even getting my sour mash batch up to run my first 5-gallon batch to see what I can make up for alcohol. I'm saving the heads for my rubbing alcohol. I want to get as much menthols and different organic compounds out of there that we can use and run the proof up to say 190, somewhere about maybe like 91%, maybe 180-ish to use for rubbing alcohol. And then, you know, creating my own medicines out of this and see what kind of art form I can create with it. Like I'm getting more introspective on preparedness, but at the same time, I'm starting to really realize in a deep fashion that people are not going to come together during this time to help each other, that they're going to want to come and steal what you have prepared because they are not prepared. And I'm looking at this whole wide landscape in the last week, and I can't explain it to you, but it suddenly opened up like the Red Sea parting for me. That's what's been happening during my Mercury retrograde is I'm kind of losing hope in humanity, knowing that with all these signs in front of us, nobody is preparing except those who are preparing. Everybody else is oblivious or just is the cognitive bias or cognitive dissonance where they just don't want to face anything and they would rather go down with a Titanic. I don't get it. I just truly have lost, humanity has lost the plot.
No, I agree. And I would say that I think that something I'm seeing is actually normies redefined. So I do think we have had a situation in the last probably 2 years, if not, well, even longer. This has always been going on, but especially the last 2 years where you got the love train, you got the fear train, and they're leaving the stations in two different directions. And I have heard from a lot of very, very turned on spiritual people who feel that it's too late to switch trains. There was a time where you had a love train going one direction, fear train going the other. They're at the station, and you could kind of go back and forth, you know. Then they were kind of leaving the station, but you could still kind of run up and down, and you could change. But right now, they have left the station, and they're too far away. And you know what else? It's that you really cannot communicate anymore. I'm going to call them the normies, and I say that affectionately, but like the normies, then like the intellectually, physically, spiritually aware truth seekers, you know, who are on the love train, are heading that direction, and we can't communicate anymore. So it's literally like you are. I understand the disappointment that you're speaking of because I have felt that too, because you realize that we're at a point right now where there's no really communication. There's no one that you're going to convince. I think if you try to talk to anybody about, honestly, let's say the grand solar minimum or the sun is going through changes, of course, and how we're feeling that spiritually. There's those that get it and there's those that do not. I will say I have seen a huge batch of normies, as we call them, all of a sudden get into wake-up mode. And I think that everybody will have, who's listening to this, you may find that you have a bit of a ministry of people that like your ministry will be there that might need your help on many levels. But all you can do is just be present and be yourself, because I think the trains have left the station. You know, a bunch did hop off the fear train last second, but now they're kind of in limbo land. You know, they can't exist at the station very long, so who knows what's gonna happen to them? But they did somehow kind of sneak on to the caboose of the love train. So they're coming with us, but they might need some help. So yeah, I've lost that faith too. But it's not so much a loss of faith; it's just a realization that love train, fear train have left, and those who are on the fear train and those who are on the love train really cannot communicate any longer. So whatever that ministry you might have of last minute train jumpers, well, we're all probably going to find that we have some. I've also would say that normies have been redefined recently, and that I am seeing a lot of pissed off angst out there and kind of a zero tolerance way about people that I have never seen before. I've never seen so many people who I think they intuitively feel the change in the air, and with the government currently doing another go after for guns. Of course, they don't like the Second Amendment very much at all. Actually, they hate it. And they're talking about rolling blackouts. Nobody I know believes, even normies, this is a change. They don't believe the rolling blackouts are anything other than, let's just say deliberate, or even if they can't help it, the governments are not making it any better. I find people I never would have expected around my neighborhood recently that I'm helping get generators. They're asking, hey, what kind of generator do I need to keep my my deep freezer and my fridge going? And I'm like, well, that's going to bring attention to yourself if the power's off too long. You might want to get a quiet one. And those last few generators that are out there, I'm seeing disappear. People are buying them. People who I never would have thought would have done so. People are extremely intolerant. I mean, I've been involved in Second Amendment stuff for decades. I've never in my life ever seen people so just amped up and pissed off saying, come and take it. No, that's the answer. We're not going to have the conversation. You're not going to control the narrative. No, And so I'm seeing some friggin' fire-breathing, pissed-off normies like I've never seen them before. So I understand the lack of faith. I have that too. Like I say, fear train, love train, but there was that last batch of normies that actually somehow hopped over the tracks and got onto the love train. They just have a lot of really fast and rough catching up to do, but they are saying, no, you ain't taking my guns. They are storing food very quickly, and they're buying generators, and they are making plans to move to, Aunt Helen's farm in Paso Robles, California, who owns a couple acres out there, or they're starting to think about different places they could go if things get bad. So I don't know. The last batch of normies, I think, will keep those who have been aware and awake and ready, who've been making ready for quite some time, busy catching them up. So I don't know. Have you seen any last minute stragglers, getting with it?
Yeah and no, but I'm just surprised that you even have generators still to find. I mean, last time I was in Home Depot and Lowe's to look around for a generator, they were pretty much empty, except for these, I forget even when they were like a 4,500 watt, burn through an enormous amount of fuel, even at 25% load. And I was like, you're going to burn out all my fuel, even at 25% load. That's crazy. So again, you're going to think about fuel consumption, because the best one I'd found when I was looking for generators before all the chaos here was the Honda 2200i. And I mean, you could go on a single tank on a 1 gallon for something like 24 hours at a 25% load. And again, when you're doing something with fridges, once it stabilizes on the temperature and turns itself off because the temperature has reached whatever it is in your freezer or refrigerator, you're going to go down to minimum load again. I like these sort of smart generators, so you don't have to keep it cranked all the time when you don't need it. So, I mean, but those generators are long gone. You're never finding those again. I have been looking for a year and a half, almost 2 years, to find another Honda 2200i because I wanted to get the parallel kit with them and put together so you could run, 3,800 watts if you needed it at the time, but then you could unplug those and run on a single generator at either 50% load or 25% load if you needed to go down in the evening and just really minimize things. And man, they were quiet too. And that's the thing is, yeah, there's some generators at, what are those bargain tool places? I forget the name of them.
Oh, Harbor Freight. You got Harbor Freight.
Yeah, Harbor Freight. Okay. They got those blue generators in there. And I'm going to tell you, it would be better than nothing. I'm going to say that for sure. It would be way better than nothing. But first, you're only going to have so much stored fuel. And those generators, because I was really a stickler at looking through the fuel consumption and the fuel usage on that. That was my number one thing I was looking at when I was thinking about a generator, the quietness and the fuel consumption. And especially with on we're talking quarter load or half load, if you're going to be able to. And those generators in the Harbor Freight, they will burn through your fuel just something fierce. And fuel is going to be incredibly valuable. So if you can conserve it, and the tank was real big too. It was like 2.5, 3-gallon tank, and then that would only last 24 hours. I'm like, whoa, hold on. How do you burn through 3 gallons of fuel when I'm going through 1 gallon? See, that's the, okay, if you have access to fuel after 24 or 48 hours, okay, doesn't no biggie. But if you're going on for a week or 2 or a month, those hours add up real quick. And then you're at the point like, okay, your fridge is running out. All right, do you have the gas tanks with a propane burner, so then you can get your pressure canner up and then start pressure canning immediately as the stuff is melting in your freezer? I mean, you got to get that, carousel moving pretty quick. So there's a lot of things to think about. Now, if I could be pressure canning off of my reserve tanks of, what you consider propane, and then have the burner going on, and then having a pressure canner running at all times, and take in what's melting out of the freezer. You could slowly thaw it at the same time, turn your generator back off, keep things frozen, and keep emptying that freezer out, and then continuing to keep canning that meat using your pressure canner. You could save most of your food by that point. But if your power goes out and you don't have anything to pressure can or save that meat, once your fuel runs out, your food is gone. So just because you got a generator, and there's a lot of things to consider here. There's a lot of working parts to keeping your food.
Oh,
There's some planned shortages coming, Craig, and I really believe there's planned power outages on purpose to ruin people's stored frozen foods.
And I think people are catching on to that because, like I said, I think humanity may have a built-in intuitive safeguard. It's kind of like if you're walking and you trip, your hands instantly go out without you thinking about it. And I think humanity may have a kind of apocalypse safeguard in a way where people are thinking about these things that I would not have usually expected to think of these things. Those who have been thinking about it for years or decades, that's different. But yeah, with the generators, it's one of the huge things people don't often think of. And be fair warned here, people. If you have a loud generator and people hear it, it's going to bring attention to you.
You're gone. You got to muffle that thing. Hay bales are a good way to do that. I knew some dudes, this is back in the day in the 90s, that grew, and it was way illegal back then. But they needed the extra power so they wouldn't flag the power company that they're running all these extra lights in the house and stuff.
For basil, yeah.
It was basil, yeah. They were growing extra basil and turmeric and stuff.
Yeah.
But they used hay bales around everything to muffle the sound.
Yeah. Now, if you're out a little ways, maybe that's not quite a problem. If you're in the country, people won't hear it. But, don't be surprised if people aren't, driving around listening for them. That definitely could be something that happens. So they make noise and they smell, people can smell the exhaust. So that's a tough one people have to look at. If power's out for 12 hours, okay, that's one thing. You can put some power strips out front and people can charge their phones and you'll be, a friend of everybody in the neighborhood. But after that, then it starts getting a little bit risque to have that noisy generator. So, that's something that people could think of. What are you going to do about that? You could put a secondary muffler on it. There's things you could do, but in general, just something to think about. What can you do? But also, people are catching on to this. So people are expecting these rolling blackouts because, well, they've kind of figured it out. Now, those of us like you and I, that's different. We already knew. But people are figuring it out, I'm noticing. And they're making plans for that. So they have a generator. Okay, maybe that will keep things going. You're right. It will burn through a lot of gas. People need to think about that. Do you have a 55-gallon drum of gas in your garage? Because you're going to need it, So you got to have some gas. But people are starting to get into, storable foods. They're starting to get into freeze drying. They're starting getting into canning the meat now. They're getting into making crap tons of jerky in the oven, So people are starting to kind of hedge their bets because I agree. And that's something I'd ask you. I mean, are you seeing that? I mean, I know I certainly am, but the the media definitely is doing predictive programming, and they're pretty much saying that, there will be rolling blackouts because, well, they say so, and that's not so good, because you're right, that will wipe out. I mean, that's going to wipe out a lot of people's preps. I mean, because it's great to freeze things. Who doesn't like freezing things? Because then you cook it and it's good to go, or you cook it, then you freeze it, then you reheat it, whatever. But yeah, freezers, they're not worth that much. And I know many people will reference solar, but solar is expensive and it's kind of late for that. And solar's crap. More than a silent generator. I mean, you're looking at like 30 grand to even get started without batteries. So, I mean, really, solar is a difficult thing for many people, if not impossible. So, generators it is. But what are you seeing with the rolling blackouts? Because it has been said it's going to happen. And like I say, I think the normies that I know are kind of onto it, because they are trying to protect their freezers, but they're also trying to get food ready that doesn't care about temperature, like canning meat, jerky, buying jerky, making jerky, storable foods, etc. How long do you think the power will be out?
Probably the first time, like a couple of weeks, to scare everybody. Because, another thing too, to think about this for a prep, that's only $100 or so, food dehydrator. Because even if you had a bunch of 20 pounds of tomatoes, you could throw it in the dehydrator and have that done by the morning. Because what we're looking at it with the Amish is we're waiting for the tomato prices to come down. So right now it's about 25 pounds of tomato for $18. But like last year, they were getting 30 pounds of tomatoes for like $14 last year. So price will be coming down. Today we bought 25 pounds of cabbage for $10. We'll use that. We're going to ferment an enormous amount of stuff right here this week. We're going to do a sauerkraut fermented, but at the same time, we're going to dehydrate a little bit of that. And our guinea fowl like to eat that because it's a little bit sweet. So we're looking at different options, but having a dehydrator, I mean, right then you start to take vegetables into a whole nother level of getting your stuff ready for seed as well, where it gets to that point where it's almost dry, but it's not. And, oh, it got rained on. Oh, too bad. Well, you could put that in the dehydrator and it'll be ready to, shuck your seed in the morning to be able to get it out of the shell there. There's so many things it's useful for. And then you could dehydrate meats to jerky. But in terms of this blackout, I just got word today. Okay, so when I say TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority Project, Great Depression, you're thinking locks and dams and hydroelectric and a little nuclear. Man, those people in the north or down here in Tennessee, they're not going to have a thing to worry about. They're running on hydro. Dude, you're never going to lose your power down here. Well, just found out today that the Bull Run coal-burning thermal plant is going to shut down. And they've been trying in earnest to really turn off the nuclear plants here too. There's quite a few of them. But then they're taking the water to low water at the same time. And whoa, like, why are you exiting all the water? Like, they're just dumping it over the dams. They're not even generating power. They're just like flowing it over to bring it down to low water on purpose here. So those three things in a row looking at me going, they got no replacement for the coal fire when it goes off. They're trying to shut down the nuclear and they're dumping the water right now. So they couldn't even generate power if they wanted to, because it'll be at low water unless it rains. And then if there's some sort of artificial drought with geoengineering or a drought, then they're going to lose all three ways to create power. And in the interim, you're going to lose at least one or two of them. And Bull Run's going down next year. And I'm like, you guys don't even have a replacement for that? Like, what's going on here? I mean, it seems so planned.
Oh, it definitely is planned. I mean, one thing about living here in the Phoenix area, and this affects, surrounding states also, is you've got Lake Powell, I believe it is, and you have the huge dam between Arizona and Nevada. I think that's the Hoover Dam, right? Thing's rather huge and beautiful. If anyone's ever driving through there, you have to drive across it, check it out. It's quite the view to see this thing. It's just massive. It's awe-inspiring. I personally find it more awe-inspiring than the Grand Canyon because, great big lightning arcs made the Grand Canyon. People made the Hoover Dam. It's impressive, like a pyramid or something. So the thing about the Hoover Dam is that Lake Powell, now, I have not verified this yet, but I do know for a fact that the first big pipe that they use to actually pull water that comes down to Phoenix area has now been turned off. They're not using it because the lake is too low. There's two others below it, and from what I understand, so I haven't verified this yet, it's on my list of things. I do believe those were built after the dam was made because they realized it was running out. So that's something that's kind of interesting. So may or may not be true, but that's what I hear. I know there's two more below the one that was turned off, and I think they were made after the fact, which sounds kind of crazy. But anyway, sounds difficult too. I'm not sure how you do it. But if anyone drives across there, it will scare you. It will freak you out. And the thing about the Phoenix area where that water, a lot of it goes to, I think some goes to California, some goes to surrounding states. But the issue is the Phoenix area here in the Scottsdale area and Mesa, especially Phoenix, especially Scottsdale, Mesa is doing it too. A lot of the cities here, they are expanding at a rate that is insane. I mean, I think Phoenix has been it is like the fastest growing metropolis over the last 20 years. It's epic compared to what used to be here. 3-acre horse properties, and now you've got 1,500 unit apartments going up all the time. There's cranes all around me, basically, and it almost seems like there's no water for here, and it's a very, very strange situation to watch it because you're like, the developers see, it goes beyond just greed. Developers not caring. Fine, well, basically what happens is they build the apartments, well, the condos, like 500 or more condos in one shot. Then BlackRock or hedge fund, other big money, buys all those as homes instantly, a second after they're manufactured. Like the day it's finished, they have the contract, they buy them all, then they rent them, so no one even owns them, But I would say in the next couple years, if even that, I think that's being optimistic. I think this whole area, I mean, it's awe-inspiring and it's crazy. And believe me, I got backup plans. This is not the only place to live. I'm just here right now because reasons, right? But the thing is that this place could be a ghost town. I mean, and I started thinking, the water might for real just not be here one day, and the rate it's going, I mean, I don't even want to calculate it because I'm afraid I might find that we're like weeks or months from ground zero here in Phoenix. And I have this feeling that it's just part of that big, I call it like the big dark like the big globalist plan, I guess you could say, that, if you want to cause mass casualties, you want to cause the most damage possible financially and physically, just turn the water off to Phoenix. And you don't have to, because there's not going to be any water to go in that pipe pretty soon. So anyway, I just mentioned that so you have fuel for your generator. Of course, you got to have, it's good to have a dehydrator. Also, if you've got a couple $1,000s, a freeze dryer is something that we're just starting to experiment with, and that thing is like 6 to 8 weeks to even get here. Sometimes you can find them on the shelf in some places, but freeze dryers are like, you're looking at $4,000 or $5,000 for a good one. But that's something you can really start freeze drying. Freeze drying meat is actually amazing. You put a meatloaf in there, freeze dry it, it reconstitutes. It works really well, but there is a cost for entry for sure. But if you had nothing and you needed something right now, a freeze dryer can start getting the job done really fast. So I thought I'd just mention a couple things off the top of my head where there's so many signs of things to come, and like the water situation, I'm sure these issues exist around the country. I do believe I've seen it, but especially here, we live in kind of a retarded place to have a huge metropolis. We live in a desert that will kill your ass in 2 hours if you're exposed to it, And if we have no water and a rolling blackout, oh my God, I'm gonna be trying to find a helicopter to escape this place, because it's gonna be like, you're gonna need to tag along with Snake Plissken to escape this New York when that happens. Oh my gosh. So back to you, David.
Yeah, you'll end up. We're here in East Tennessee, back on the pad in the back field back there, plugged in on your camper. Like, welcome.
I know. I'll be like, I know it's gonna be some just gas up the truck and throw the gun safe in it and tow a car and head to Tennessee because this place has now become the zombie apocalypse, that's for sure. Normies are rising, and I think that's something that is good. I think we might see more from normies than we have expected. They might surprise us, but along with all these disasters, one thing that I see, especially trading, so we can get into talking about trading, of course.
Well, Craig,
but,
can I stop you
yes.
first?
Yeah.
The food, I think, is going to be the thing that wakes a lot of people up.
Mm.
When we've gone from bountiful food our entire lives, there's one little thing happening across the ocean, this Ukraine-Russia thing. That's it. Yet the entire world's food supply stops, and people are going to start to ask a lot of questions like, whoa, I thought America was one of the largest food producers on the planet. Why are the stores empty? Even the most basic commonsensical thing, the food, because most people understand America's big and we got a lot of water, rivers, except for you're at. And there's a lot of agriculture in California and almost everywhere in Kansas, and the whole place would grow wheat and corn up and down the middle of the country. And then you got the whole eastern part here, which is all fruits and veg also. And people are going to, with the common sense, are going to, where'd all the food go? We're one of the largest food producers on the planet. Why is there nothing there? I think that's what's going to be to wake people up. They're going to realize it's planned at that point.
Oh, I think so. And the thing about the food is you have the food shortages, things that are not available. But also the hyperinflation, I think, is a huge one because, people are asking, do you think there's hyperinflation? Is there going to be hyperinflation? And I would think to myself, well, here's the thing. Go to your go to your Amazon history, buying history, basically. And you can browse that. I mean, I'm sure everybody out there has got an Amazon account. Come on, let's face it, we all do it, right? So you have an Amazon account, and if you go back to 2019 and look at things that you bought, and now look at them now at what they cost, and you'll know very well that there is hyperinflation. And then, of course, if you're paying attention to especially your food budget, you look at, of course, what eggs cost, what everything costs. It gets pretty extraordinary. Some things aren't so bad, but it varies. But yeah, I would say hyperinflation certainly is in play. So like there's an article.
I compare then?
Yeah.
What can I compare with you?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so out here from the Amish, I can get a dozen eggs for $4, or I can go to 3 other farms around here that sell eggs, of people that I know personally that sell eggs out of their house with their own chickens for about $4 $4 a dozen. I am hearing word that by the end of this year here coming up around, like I said, Thanksgiving, that eggs are going to be $12 a dozen. So I'm curious what you got for your pricing over there. Like if you go to the store, and I'm talking nice, organic, farm fresh eggs, $4 a dozen. But again, I'm in the middle of a farming community.
Yeah. Well, here in the Phoenix, Scottsdale area, I would say that, pasture raised eggs, you're looking at $5 to $6 or more.
Okay. See, it's 50% more expensive then.
Yeah, 5 to 6. And the thing is, sometimes you'll see them on sale. As we know, free range is not quite the same as pasture raised. As far as farms selling them out here, farmers who are selling them, like at the farmers market, and they're like $7. So it's really the farmers are expensive that are doing eggs right now, and I couldn't tell you why exactly. I could ask them, but the stores like the natural grocery stores that have the pasture raised or free range eggs, and I oftentimes question their quality a little bit. You know what I mean? Those are still $5 to $6 a dozen, somewhere in there, and they can be a little more. They can be a little more, a little less. Really, I should say it goes between like $3.99 on sale to like $7.95. For some, it really varies. It's funny. I noticed that the different suppliers for the eggs, the prices can vary a couple dollars, and that's always changing. So,
how would life be different if people couldn't have eggs, or if it was such a luxury that you could only get it once every 2 or 3 weeks instead of having it all the time?
Yeah, that would change a lot, I would say, because if eggs are that expensive, then you start thinking, bacon is going to be that expensive, and also, of course, then you start getting into like the drive-through culture at McDonald's, places like that. They're going to have a hard time. So, that would create a great difficulty for a lot of people, especially people who have kids, because the thing is kids, they want their oh gosh, they want what they want. They want what their friends are eating and such like that. Whatever, Lunchables, there you go. Like, what happens when a Lunchable goes up another 50, another 1 or 2x?
I'm sorry, I don't know what a Lunchable is.
A Lunchable is it's like a little, it's absolute crap. It's like the worst quality food ever, but it's kind of like, there's different ones, and it can be like a little bits of cheese, little chunks of cheese, like some crackers, some grapes that look horrible, and I don't know, fruit or something like that. It's all it's like a little bento box of crappy food. And you can, if you go to the supermarket, you'll see the Lunchables section. They are refrigerated, some of them, and kids love them, and they like taking those to school because they all eat their Lunchables. Well, a lot of parents.
You're building it up for me. You're
building
it up.
Yeah, you got to go see Lunchables. Watch Lunchables, because that is when we're going to see some rioting. Because when those things 1x, 2x, 3x in price, the thing is that a lot of parents depend on those. Oh my God, it's wretched quality food. It's like the worst of the worst. I mean, it's canola oil, it's GMO mutant wheat and
You're
soy.
building it up, man.
It's oh my gosh, it's peanut butter that has never seen a peanut. It's awful. So the thing is that you've got these oh God, these wretched things. I think I'd rather just scoop interesting things out of a cat litter box and eat them, seriously. And so it'd be a little gritty, but it'd be healthier. So the thing is that it's and these are big with the kids. And so the kids want these, and the parents will say, well, that's what the kids want. And if they don't get it, they lose their minds, And so it's stuff like that. It's the eggs, of course. But as you know, across the board, when things start getting more expensive, I think especially when it affects parents, and managing their children, it becomes very, very difficult, very, very fast, for sure. It's interesting, the things that will couple X in price that will cause riots. And I am predicting Lunchables. Those are one of my, I need to start watching the price of Lunchables in the supermarkets, because I still don't go anywhere that really sells Lunchables, but I need to make a point of checking the regular supermarkets more, because when Lunchables become, a couple, $15 a box of friggin' poison, then we're gonna see parents rioting for sure.
You could do the Lunchables report. That would be kind of a cool thing to follow. Lunchables pricing across the states. All parents would tune into that one, dude. You'd have a ready-made audience of families right there. Bam.
Oh my gosh, I would do that on YouTube. I would actually.
We could couple it with the Schumann resonance, the phase of the moon, and then what the KP index was, along with the Lunchables price, to see what kind of the outcome is and the outrage of the parents and how the children are behaving. Psychologically different based on all those factors, plus the food price.
I'm telling you, yeah. If the Lunchables, if the Lunchables 2x or 3x within a week, the Schumann resonance is definitely going to be something we've never seen before. I mean, it's going to be insane. The amount of human anger would be phenomenal. Oh my God, it would look like it would be a mess. Well, the thing about the hyperinflation is, looking at the Wall Street Journal, there was an article, it was the 31st, so it would have been a day or two ago. Updated May 31st. Well, President Biden and Fed Chairman Jerome Powell met.
Droning on Powell?
Droning on Powell. Well, they met today, and it was kind of a closed-door meeting, I believe. And I think that what we know about it was that they did supposedly, they mentioned that they'll listen to whatever the Fed wants, the federal government, Biden admin, whatever, will listen to whatever the Fed wants, their top priorities, inflation, et cetera, et cetera. But it was a unique situation where I think it was not today, but yesterday they met. I'm sorry, I forget exactly the time and the date. But they did meet recently in last day or so, and it was a closed door, meeting. Which I guess is somewhat unprecedented. And then, of course, we heard about it afterwards. But when I heard about this, and I hadn't really followed it, I kind of just forgot about it. And then I came across it again today, and I realized that it does seem like when you look at the direction for the Fed doesn't know what to do to control interest rates. It's like really, we are at a point, and this is just me, kind of following them, a lot of market stuff, and it seems like no matter what is done, we're looking at hyperinflation. We're kind of at that point in the every fiat currency fails, as we know. And so it appears that we're at that point, and there's just nothing the Fed can do. And we have
hold on. How about a time frame on that? I mean, we're looking at months or weeks or years, or how are we looking into the regular people won't be able to afford the food, so they're going to go to the street?
Well, I would mention this. So that's a good question, actually. And the thing is, here's an article from today over at Zero Hedge, and they pulled it from, I believe, Bloomberg. Yeah, but it's 36% of Americans making $250,000 are living paycheck to paycheck, and that is a insane amount. You think about that. So it says, according to a survey by payments.com and Lending Club, some 36% of households who make at least a household, okay, that makes $250,000 a year, nearly 4x the median U.S. salary, of course, devote almost all their income to household expenses. Now, where are they living, cities, etc., like that, but still, when I was looking at this article, I mean, when you look at the cost of living, rent, etc., like that, or mortgages, I mean, if you want to live in a city like Phoenix, or you want to live in a city like, well, even the Bay Area, you're looking at $100,000 you would need to be broke. And so we are looking at a time of hyperinflation. So when you mention when, that's a tough one. I've really been following the Fed and the administration and the idea of raising interest rates, leaving it where they are. I mean, I've been watching like the S&P 500, the big indexes, the Russell 2000, watching crypto, watching metals, gold and silver. And I really think we're in a time right now of unpredictability. It's just everybody's waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's a tough one. So I don't know when, but what I can say is, if you think about since 2019, I would venture to guess that in many areas, you're looking at, we've already have inflation of 40%, probably. So how long can people sustain that? I think it's going to be kind of here's what I kind of think we're going to see, is we're going to start seeing people selling toys. And I would say, watch for this. Here's a thing to watch. Watch in your neighborhood, watch in your city, watch where you live, for people to start selling boats, selling extra vehicles, watch for people selling vacation homes, extra homes that aren't their primary residence, or selling their primary residence and moving to a secondary residence. Look for families moving in together. Look for migrations where everybody, moves to Aunt Helen's farm in Paso Robles, California, because she has a couple acres. They'll pretty much sell their homes and all move there and begin to homestead, like it's happening now. So those are the things, a migration of people who have some means to where they can easier live, sometimes joining forces with other family members and or friends. Watch for the boats to be on sale in your neighborhood, people rolling out their boats. Watch for the motorhomes, those big, Bluebird motorhomes, the big Winnebagos. Watch for the small Sprinters, to go on sale, to have for sale signs on them. And cars, that car that lives in the garage that they don't use because it's just an old beater, or maybe it's actually a very nice car they have, they don't drive very much. Watch for that. Definitely watch for people who are trying to sell leased vehicles. That's one. So these are things to watch for. And I think one of the things that will really be something to measure is drive around your neighborhood, drive around your city, and watch for the for sale signs on those items. Because when people start selling their toys, the nice things they have that they don't really need, that's when your area specifically is getting wiped out by the hyperinflation, I would say. And that's when your life is going to start changing. And also, when you see that, Also look around because you will have already had a growing homeless population where maybe you never could have imagined one existing. Like here in Phoenix and Scottsdale, Scottsdale's like the pretty part of Phoenix, basically. We have like real homeless people now. Like I'm from Seattle and I'm used to homeless people. It doesn't, they're like just kind of urban crickets to me. They're just part of the scenery. They are, you know. They're like coyotes, you know. They're just part of nature here, you know. But people are here. Here you go. Watch for people in your city, in your cities, in your towns to start pushing homeless populations around, because that's happening now between like Fountain Hills, Mesa, Scottsdale, a bunch
Hey,
of
that's happening in Knoxville right now too.
Yes, they're starting to people are starting to say, I don't want the homeless in my neighborhood. You know, I got my Ukrainian flag out front. You know, I know I drive my Tesla, but I don't want homeless people in my backyard. You know, okay, whatever. So I think that's one to watch. Like you mentioned, you're seeing it in Knoxville. When you start to see the homeless population, when it becomes political and they start pushing them around to different areas, you're next. You know, your life is going to change for sure.
Because they used to be very I was sort of blasé. Okay, they were there and they lived out in the woods and you know, in a couple areas that were sort of secluded, but they were between areas that weren't being developed. I was like, you know, the crime wasn't too high, and then suddenly now the crime gets real high, and what they're in there doing before that they didn't do was bush hogging all the low brush down and just leaving the tallest of trees and the biggest of trees. So basically it looks like a park looking in. They pretty much limbed everything out and bush hogged all the, you know, down, cut all the brush down, and you can see really, really, really far back into these places where even just before you couldn't see barely off the road, and now you're looking back, you know, hundreds and hundreds of feet into there. So, you know, they were doing that on purpose so nobody can hide. As soon as the police see them, they're in there, they catch them, your tent, whatever, gone, you're out of there. But they didn't do that until just as recent, you know, mid-COVID-ish. And then, you know, then they'll, push them down. They'll swing down by the university in the downtown area, and then they'll swing out somewhere else. It seems like they are being pushed around here.
Yep. And then if you look along with that, watch for things that are on sale. Watch for people selling their toys. And if you have like a local thing like a next door, or people, or actually, you know, not to give Facebook love, but like Facebook locals, I think they call it. Look at those online places, but also just drive around and look, and you will see. Or for one thing, if you actually have an income, if you got some money, get ready for the good deals. You know, the housing bubble in strong areas is not really failing, but in weaker areas, we're seeing houses dive even as much as I've heard, like 40%. So we're starting to see a housing bubble implode on itself. You know, where I don't think it's going to happen everywhere, at least not right away, but it is beginning to happen. You know, and then also there's things to watch. This is crazy, but watch for crime in your area as far as the hyperinflation and how are things changing. Watch for crime, like it's a good thing on Nextdoor. If you just join Nextdoor, it's worth it. You know, and you'll start to see the crime in your area. And are people stealing catalytic converters? Or people are?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what? This is a sad one. Can I tell you the saddest story ever?
Yes.
This was back on Mother's Day, not too long ago. This year, Mother's Day. How long ago was that? A month ago?
Something like that, a month or two. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, during Mother's Day, this is a little tiny country church in Tennessee, like way out. Little tiny country church. There's dozens of them around anywhere you go. Somebody stole the catalytic converters out of the people's cars on Sunday in a remote, you know, like what you consider a countryside church in Tennessee. They stole the catalytic converters out of 6 cars in like minutes. They were lightning fast. They came in. But of all people to target, like elderly population going to church that are mothers on Mother's Day and then steal their catalytic converters, like they got a special place in the burning zone for them. Like that's really rough. That happened here.
Yes, and it's to the point now where people are like here in the Scottsdale area. Everyone's keeping, well, if they have a garage or they can find one, you know, somebody's not using half their garage or something, people are, you know, really trying to get all their cars inside, because at night the catalytic converter ninjas come and they can get a catalytic converter somehow without making any noise in a matter of moments. In fact, some of the garages around here are actually selling catalytic converter armor that they put underneath your car to actually make your it's armor. It's basically a shield around your catalytic converter so they can't steal it. And this is something that you would not have heard about in 2019. Nobody was thinking about this. It was farthest from anybody's mind. The political, struggle of moving the homeless around, people saying, well, we don't want homeless in our neighborhood, or if so, we want them like not past here, we want them over there. Communities arguing about homeless people, catalytic converters being stolen, home invasions being stolen, people being robbed at gas stations, all these things that are just unheard of here in Scottsdale, a very, very pretty part of the country, I will tell you.
And wait a second, that's all starting to happen out there now.
It's happening now. It's just part of life here now. And also, people, here's one, watch your electric bikes. People, even if you chain your bike up.
That's been like that forever too, bikes and electric bikes.
People will snag your electric bike, but here's something else they're going after.
While you're riding it.
While you're riding it, it's true, but they'll steal your battery. So if you go somewhere and you've got your bike chained up, can they get the battery?
Yeah, take the battery inside for sure.
People are starting to take the batteries inside here, and that's like the last couple of months. No one ever thought about that stuff here. This is a tourist town, and so those are the things to watch for hyperinflation, because I think it's gonna affect everywhere differently at different times. But like I say, when people are selling their toys, when the catalytic converters are getting robbed, when your homeless population becomes a political struggle between communities, and when violent crime is happening where it's never happened, there you go. And also, of course, along with the hyperinflation and many reasons for that, or maybe the few reasons for that, we do have to look at the well, that's one issue. But then one thing that does exacerbate it, of course, is you do have like your vaccinated population. You do have like your fentanyl and such like that. And if you're driving down a good area that used to be very, very nice, and behind every bus station, bus stop, you see people doing that like fentanyl yoga, like where they're bending over and defying gravity and stuff. So anyway, that's where you're going to see it. And I think that, the hyperinflation comes with, especially if you are a place that has had, and I wonder, it may affect other places differently, but places that have had a lot of growth recently, let's say like Phoenix, right? Or Knoxville, Austin.
Big growth places real fast.
Big growth places that brought all the problems of the big cities with them. Those are the ones where I think the hyperinflation might really start to be an issue, because then, what happens when, people can't afford the place they used to live, and now the kids can't get Lunchables, and they're vaccinated, so they can't think anymore, and they pretty much just take a chainsaw into McDonald's and they try to kill everybody. So anyway, watch out for people with chainsaws in McDonald's.
Yeah, like Happy Thursday with that thought, Craig. Bringing it on, dude.
I know. There's going to be a whole new meaning to Blue Light Special there in Walmart pretty soon.
We're going to take a break right here. David DuByne, along with Craig Simpson from Radio Creators, talking hyperinflation. Doubling in price is not hyperinflation. Tripling in price is not. What if things go up 100x? That will come right back. See, 2 minutes and 2 seconds. Freedom Slips.
FreedomSlips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Are you interested in the paranormal, murder mystery, real natural law? You enjoy interviews with amazing guests? Then join Crypt Rick every Monday night 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Right here on Revolution Radio. Studio A, freedomslips.com. Crypt Rips Hyperinflation. Welcome to the crypt.
Join me at Revolution Radio, Studio B, at 11 a.m. on Saturday for Free Association, when we take a look at philosophy, spirituality, psychology, social issues, and geopolitics. It's every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern on Studio B at freedomslips.com.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays, midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Galactic Interstellar Council on Revolution Radio Studio A, Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Join us as we traverse the starseed paradigm, as expressed in the time-space continuum that we know as the divine expression of love and light. Integrating this conscious unity into the galactic paradigm. So welcome all, both terrestrial beings and galactic beings as one. So be it. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at higher risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps. All right, thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And yeah, we're going to get back to your host.
And welcome back for the second hour of Mini Ice Age Conversations. I'm your host, David DuByne, with Craig Simpson from Radiant Creators tonight. We're talking about hyperinflation before the break. You know, Craig was talking about prices getting expensive for people where they might want to sell their four-wheeler, their boat, you know, doubling prices, things that just became suddenly unaffordable. But hyperinflationary events for me, or hyperinflation, as many people know it, that's like a 10x, a 100x price increase, you know, because you look through history, then you start to get into the 10,000x increases. So how would that affect people's psyche if they had $10,000 in the bank? If I gave you $10,000 in the bank, you'd be like, all right, I got money. I can do some things. I could, you know, get prepared. I'm really not that scared about running out of money if I have 10 grand in the bank right this second. But imagine if that 10,000 turns in the equivalent of $1 US overnight because of hyperinflation. That's the kind of hyperinflation I'm talking about. Now, you know, discussing these types of things on YouTube, you need to draw a very clean line on where you go with talking about how society could collapse in that, because that's like a fear thing, and they can catch you on a couple of let's say terms of service that you shouldn't be cut. It's just a whack-a-mole game with YouTube. But freedomslips.com, we can talk about this freely. I thank you for allowing us tonight. The running costs, production costs, show costs, airing costs. I was thinking about keeping the freedomslips.com website up and running and functional with, webmaster and all these things. If you like this kind of free speech, hit it up. Donation, freedomslips.com. Many ways to donate there, even crypto. But, as we go through communications channels going down, as events start to happen, if these events really play out like Craig and I are talking about tonight, where you get hyperinflation there, what happens if you get a blackout there? Are they truly going to cut down and you can only listen to government news at that point on an emergency broadcast station? Or are you still able to tune in and get information flowing like this as an emergency broadcast station in itself for information amongst people, but it's free, it's uncensored. See, that's the thing that it needs to be. I don't care what we talk about, it's not censored, and that's where it needs to go with all these things happening so quickly. And 3 months is not a long way away from here now. These things with the corn shortages coming in and people wanting, traders and manufacturers wanting to take physical delivery of the corn and the wheat that's not going to be there coming up here in September and December. Like, we're not talking mountains of years into the future. We're like 3 months out from this. So I'm glad we can talk about it. So Craig, throwing the ball back in your court, hyperinflation at doubling a price or tripling a price. Okay, that stings. But what happens if we truly get in like history tells us? We're going to go into the hundreds, if not thousands, tens of thousands of percent or X increases in things. And then at that point, what happens with any faith in dollars? And, that we're at that point. Then you got gold and silver and crypto, and then what? Government's going to try to restrict that or get their taxes off your sales and gains.
Yeah, that becomes kind of an impossible situation because I don't think that, I know it can be almost cliche to think so, but not all Americans live necessarily extravagantly. Some do, of course. Some make a lot of money, spend a lot of money. That's fine, but an extraordinary amount of people, I think, in the country, they live not necessarily paycheck to paycheck, but they are, if we did have hyperinflation like that, of that much of a percent, it becomes very difficult because it would really just basically shut people's lives off. And I think you would find that, you would have an initial migration of people, maybe, dispersed families around the country kind of moving, like I say, to grandma's on a farm or something like that. But past that, what do people do? Because we're already seeing people whose businesses have changed because of fuel prices. People who do things like, let's say, yoga studios, let's say martial arts studios, let's say massage places, all services that ultimately are not essential. I've heard from people who do all of those things that they are seeing a hit basically, and they're already seeing a lack of clientele. That there are people who are canceling, who are not showing up anymore, and they don't want to pay for it anymore. Like they're letting their month run out or whatever because they can't afford it. That's already with gas, and so here in I would say the Phoenix area, we're looking at like, I think it's like $5, $5.19 or something like that, $5.25 a gallon for regular, So even that alone is changing the economy already. So I would say that, I think and of course we know there's shipping, of course there's trucks and there's trains. Trains use diesel, trucks use diesel. It would honestly be a society changing event because shipping wouldn't be affordable by rail, by truck, and then people would not want to drive. I think you would find that gas became something where you would have to I mean, cars would be getting gas siphoned all the time, everywhere. It would be very difficult. It would create a lot of crime, a lot of a black market on gas, of course, and a lot of violence, a lot of death. You're going to find people who are siphoning somebody's gas and because they can't get their car indoor at night, or there'll just be home invasions to siphon gas out of cars. They just go out to the garage and siphon the gas while the rest of the crew robs the people. So really, I would say that, not that I want to be a doomsayer, but yeah, if we did have for essential goods hyperinflation that was, if incredible, like where dollars aren't even worth anything. Let's just put it that way, where you've got 10,000 in savings, and you're making 5,000 a month. Let's just say whatever the household is, and now your monthly expenses are $30,000. You know what I mean? Because the currency has no value. That would pretty much be the end of civilization. I mean, I don't want to be a doomsayer, but that's just kind of game over at that point. And I would say that, there's better places to be, but it's not necessarily any perfect place to be at that point, because I don't know what society would do, really. That would be kind of it. I mean, there'd be a lot of dependence on the government. There'd probably be martial law.
There'd be all of that.
Yeah. What would you do? And then, of course, to get government assistance, you're going to have to play their game. And there'll be those that are willing to and those that are not. And, of course, you're going to see neighborhoods where you've got, however they organize these things, you're going to have the capos, as they call them. I mean, World War II, the Germans got very good at psychologically profiling people, where if you give them power and armband and say you're special and you can do whatever you want to the other prisoners, they were, as the saying went, they were worse than a Nazi ever could be. And so you're going to find that, you're going to find those will be identified in your neighborhood, and they'll be used by the state to basically be enforcers that, ensure nobody is storing any food. Nobody has a generator. I mean, pretty much we're just jacked if that happens. I mean, it really would be pretty much. We will not even get to Mad Max after that for a generation.
Sounds like a lot of those executive orders would be popped in during that time too, to be able to take what you have.
Yes.
Now, if you go back through history, though, when it gets to like that, people do want to start to join the military voluntarily because it gives them 3 hots and a cot, plus some spending money of the new money of the era of the day. And I do think you're right. About a 6X would wipe everything out, or put so much movement under people's butts that they would, it depends on how they would move then. The digital rationing cards will be in here. Now, mark my words. So this is a distant early warning too. That's actually more a prediction on this one than a warning. By the end of the year here, and I'm going to say close to Thanksgiving time, you're going to start on a digital rationing card program. And that's this year, at the end of this year, which is it gets us into that first foray into government dependence. It's not just dependence. Well, you're depending on them to allow you to have your chit for whatever it is, your coupon. But see, here's another thing. Now they're going to be pulling this out on the blockchain. So your digital ration card is going to be on the blockchain. Okay. But then they're going to move this facial recognition technology onto your phone to unlock that, to allow you to use that QR coded digital ration card of pounds of sugar, pounds of butter, whatever it is, pounds of meat. But the thing is, like when we, like in my it was my grandparents' time when they were about 20, they were in the Great Depression, like they could go for the family and to bring the family's coupon. Even young kids could run down with the family coupon and go, hey, my dad needs this. And every store owner knew every kid, and it was like everybody knew everybody. So, okay, yeah, that's for Johnny or whatever, and then, okay, here's your pound of butter. But now it's digitally, it's facial recognized, and so what you're going to have to do is the physical person's going to have to go there. There's no transference of it like back in that day. Younger kid could run for the family. Well, what if you're sick and you can't go there? Or you're working and you can't go, or you're hurt and you can't go. There's like a million reasons why you couldn't physically be at the store, but you can send somebody else to go shopping for you. And that's how food's bought and sold today. I mean, one of the family members will go out and buy food to bring home for everybody else. With these digital rationing cards, only the person who has the phone that can unlock it with their face is going to be able to access that. So say me and Craig are brothers, and he's like, hey, it's your turn. No, it's your turn. No, okay, all right, I'll go. If I has his phone, I can't unlock that digital rationing card to get to it, to even QR code swipe it. That's where it's going, and that's scarier than that. That's way scarier than what happened in the 1930s, because, again, you could have it was on a piece of paper, you could have another person go and get it for you. But then what is going to be required for you to get the digital rationing card? What's going to be required of you to have that app or that blockchain protocol, whatever it is going to be? It's undecided at the moment. R3 is working on this with the American government. So if you know anything about R3 down in Singapore, they're working with a huge amount of multinationals trying to bring in private blockchain. Nothing that you've really been that's available out in the public domain. This is pure and unadulterated private blockchain. How your public fingers will never touch this. That's where they're going with this type of private blockchain, where all these digital rationing cards, but it's going to be on a government issued or precursor to a central bank digital currency blockchain. So see how they're going to usher this in. And as soon as the digital rationing cards are in there, then it's a smooth, easy transition into central bank digital issuance and programmable money, because they're already halfway there, and then you get used to it. And then the next thing is, oh, your dollars aren't worth anything, but we have these new central bank digital issued dollars, the new dollar. And all you have to do is put it on your phone, and it's going to be on your phone on the blockchain, just like their ration card was. Remember that? And people will understand blockchain at the end of the year. But then what's going to be required to get into the system, to get your CBDC and to get your digital rationing card? Like, what's going to be required of that to be able to even access those two things that are going to give you life again? That's going to be as important as a breath of air moving forward. That's the scary thing. That digital technology is going to be equally as important as your physical oxygen breath that you breathe in. AI is taking us over right now. It's crazy and unnerving.
And how do you get that digital ID? And I would say that one place I could see that expanding from is you've got one of the many arms of the Gates Foundation working on in Africa the whole digital ID based on your fingerprint and retina scan. I do believe they've been doing that in India. They've been doing that in Africa. And their excuse is basically that those people are too dumb to have an identity. So you have to get it from them biologically, and then that becomes their identity, and they love it supposedly. Well, I would say that's definitely how it would go, because if people are desperate, they're going to say, well, we need your fingerprint and we need your retinal scan, and just get used to holding up your app on your phone, and someone's going to scan your little QR code, then they're going to scan your eyeball, and they're going to make sure it is you, and you only get they're going to be tracking every aspect of your life at that point, and that would be an extreme moment of desperation for this country, I think. But it's hard because you would have those that do it and then those that do not, and then simply with the empire's desire for their great reset, for their green economy and such like this, that's how they couch it. It's just as simple as making any other type of life, any other way of life illegal. They can just call it terrorism and it's done. So yeah, I would say that people kind of need to be ready for normalcy to just go away. And it might be interesting. I mean, really, it's
as if it hasn't gone away for the last 2 years. Now you're talking a giant step different.
Yeah, it's like we're gonna be. I mean, many of us wish. Wow, we wish it was like the 2019 again, and we very well may be wishing it was 2022 again. So it all depends. But we're seeing a lot of cracks. I am seeing some things that make me somewhat hopeful, because one of the things that I am seeing is I do follow the Ukrainian thing over there, Russia and Ukraine, because one of the things that I'm seeing is that the new world, how would I put it? So you've got NATO. So basically, there's a proxy war going on. And I really literally consider it between the deep state and a BRIC nations that want to be free, especially Russia. And the thing is, we have collective Western leaders that are so stupid and so friggin' evil and hate their people so much that they really luckily can't do much right. And eventually inbreeding does cause mental problems. And so the thing is, NATO's ideal was always to make Germany weak and destroy Russia. And you can say at the end of World War II, okay, he had Stalin, bad guy, and he had the Warsaw Pact. He had the countries surrounding his western border. He didn't want to ever fight on his own border again. The Warsaw Pact nations did not like it. They were muscled into it by a psycho. NATO was the reaction by the West. And I've always found it very cute where Eisenhower is known as a hero because he said, beware of the military-industrial complex. He created it. Okay, he created NATO. He was a World War II general. He killed 1 million German POWs. Look it up. I mean, the man wasn't nice, It's funny how you only remember some neat line that he said about what he created. So anyway, Russia fell, Warsaw Pact fell, NATO never went away. Russia went into Ukraine back in the 90s. They made it, whatever, the nasty lady and John Kerry and Psaki and all of them were over there in Ukraine. They made a deal. Russia backed off, and of course they just kept expanding NATO. So eventually this war had to happen. So in an act of self-defense to stop NATO, to stop a proxy war with Russia, Putin started kicking ass. Well, the thing is, though, if one is following this, the collective West every day, despite what the mainstream media is saying, is getting their asses handed to them. And as much as the collective West, like Macron and of course Biden and such, and then what's his name? I forget his name in Germany. Anyway, they're also proudly saying that they're like destroying, Russia with sanctions, but the ruble is insane. The ruble's doing incredible and so you've got nations that have been sanctioned for so long, like Iran. They're all just kind of getting together. In many ways, they're going gold backed, and then also, like Greece, is the kind of international gangsters of shipping, and so they're shipping Russian oil. They just, if there's any sanctions, they just roll the ship out, change ownership, and then change the flag and keep it going. So I've been watching, and if you look at Germany's economy, you look at France's economy, look at the UK's economy, like they're getting, and look at their oil and gas prices, like these nations are being, by, I guess, NATO, globalist owned NATO, whatever, these nations are being asked to commit suicide, like literally. And their leaders are like, yes, we'll do it because that's where our allegiances lie. So the one thing I think that could screw this up, that we do have our grand solar minimum, we do have our problems to deal with, but at least the government being what's destroying us might be that right now, by far in history, we have the dumbest people ever in our American administration, the most ruthless people. They can't do anything right. The ruble is crushing the dollar. Russia's doing great. The BRIC nations are happy. And I guess in a sense, the collective West, at least its governments, are in agreement with destroying themselves, be it that it's their mission, what they're told to do, or because they're stupid and they hate the countries that they represent, all the above, whatever. It's what's happening. And so, you've got the Biden administration closing. We were somewhat energy independent. Now we're not. Now we're closing those. You've got in Germany, we're not going to be a manufacturing superpower anymore. No more BMW. Sorry, because oil and gas are dirty. We're just going to use this crisis to go green overnight. F manufacturing. Who cares about famine? Who cares about a destroyed economy? We have we need to get our great reset in here. And I think the thing is, the collective West knows it's a great reset. The normies are waking up more so than we would think, and stuff's starting to happen. So I could see basically, and tell me if you see any glimmer of hope in this. The collective West is so dumb and destroying itself that they may not have the power to get their great reset, basically, to get their Green New Deal, because they're, Henry Kissinger.
Well, they're going to try, though. They're going to try.
They're going to try. But like Henry Kissinger was over, I think, I forget where he was, but Henry Kissinger, I mean, my God, an evil bastard, right? But he actually was like, okay, we got to end this because we're destroying the collective West economies. The Ukraine needs to come to the table, lose some eastern territories, lose their seaports, and to get this over with, because we're going to burn the world if we don't stop. And when Henry Kissinger is the voice of reason, all right? I mean, the world's going mad. So,
Yeah, right? Like, put that in perspective for a second.
Yeah.
Hannibal Lecter is the head chef.
Exactly. When everyone's like,
at the 5-star resort. Like, oh, man.
It's so true. So, like, that's the thing with the collective West and the Ukrainian situation, the proxy war, all this globalism versus possibly a new. One thing is, there's a great YouTube channel, Fall of Civilizations, amazing. People check it out. He covers like the rise and fall of civilizations. Every civilization falls. Well, you know what? Russia's
I've seen that channel. I quite like the content there also.
Yeah, it is amazing, and it's great to watch because, hey, everybody, I hate to tell you, but it's time for the fall of your civilization. You're in that part now, so focus on that when you watch. Okay, so what happens when it falls? And in a sense, it's like, if we think about it, in the 90s, Russia did fall apart. That society fell, and now it's reborn. Ours ain't fell. Ours is not really fallen yet, and I think we're next. And I think they fell. They got their act together. They're powerful. They have a powerful leader. And we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think that might be a bit of grace that we have, only in that the world leaders of the collective West kind of destroy themselves and their countries. And there's a very good chance that either they bring on the pain faster, or I don't know, maybe we're going to, I have never seen Americans so in berserker mode before, where they're just aware and saying no, and they're going to take the fight to them. They're not going to wait around. So I don't know. I know that people can be passive. They put up with a lot, but
until they don't.
And I really, really believe, not that I endorse violence anybody, I'm just saying that I really, really believe that we're going to see some mad, crazy, berserker Americans out there pretty soon that they're going to just start kicking ass. I mean, eventually that SWAT truck is going to get on the wrong street because someone's done something that the establishment doesn't like, and that's going to be what kicks it all off. Maybe state by state.
I'm looking here at I'm over on foodsafetynews.com, and somebody sent me a link earlier today. Imported seafood and dried fruits and canned food among security. All right. Security. I went over this thing. It's on June 1st, and it's from yesterday. And this is scrutiny by the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. Well, lo and behold, I open this sheet up that they have here, and they have import alert recategorization of, get this, this is one of their actual real categories. Detention without physical examination of fish and fishery products for importer and foreign processor combination. Meaning there's nothing wrong with it at all. They're just detaining it without even a physical examination, without length of duration even being mentioned or even need to be quantified. They just pull it aside. Okay, it's ours, and it's not going anywhere from here. That's exactly what you're talking. They just changed the law so the elite can prepare and they can grab what they want off the boats. Literally, maritime law, grab what they want off the boats, and they don't have to let that anything in that they want to get first. Exactly. It's really quite intense on some of these things they're reading about. Let me Oh yeah, here's another one, like detention without physical examination of food products containing illegal undeclared sweeteners. All right, so what's a undeclared sweetener? So there's two different terms there: illegal, undeclared. So either of those now cover anything with a sweetener product in it that can be just taken away in a moment's notice.
Oh yeah, and you look at now. I'm getting a little bit Alex Jones on people, so just realize this. But something that he's been saying for years is, you notice how there's that label on, or a label on almost anything you buy, from protein powder to pencils, that says the state of California says this is a carcinogen. You know, well, there you go. What happens when, since that's been so normalized, they just ban all food?
Yeah, because look at this one down here, Craig. This is it's so vague here. Detention without physical examination of imported human foods due to filth. Well, filth, I mean, define that for me. You know, you're filthy and my filthy, and clean Nick's filthy or clean freak's filth is going to be way completely different. Like, again, how do you define what speech is?
Oh yeah, we're
It's the
talking
same
like,
thing. Like, how do they make it so vague? Like anything with a sweetener in it that might be undeclared or maybe illegal. Maybe stevia becomes illegal one day, and anything made of stevia product, like they're just literally made this law so they can take anything off all those thousands of boats waiting off the West Coast and just grab it and pull it to a warehouse and say it's detained without physical examination under 18 of these new laws here that just passed. That's crazy how they can just snatch food like that straight out of the supply chain with no explanation, nothing even given back to the public with this. That's insane. You're going to watch a lot of stuff start disappearing. I cannot believe what I looked at here.
Oh, and I just saw a great article that just popped up right now. And before I look at that, though, there was what was it? I think Greece like seized an Iranian tanker or Iranian cargo ships. Then Iran seized, like at sea, like 2 tankers or cargo ships of Greece that had the Greek flag on them, I think.
Yeah.
So we're starting to see, between countries, we are seeing tanker and cargo ship piracy, and as some conjecture, that might not actually, because I think you might be having some friggin' rockets flying and bullets flying if this was real. Some do conjecture that under the guise of piracy, we're now trading because of sanctions and such. It's a great way to save face. So we're seeing
it is,
some crazy.
But here, these laws just passed under these the new scrutiny laws and the new import alert laws. The FDA just became the largest legal theft administration, or the legal pirates of the United States, to pull all foodstuffs off boats, and when it's entering the country, to pull it aside and send it to the elite. It's their private confiscation army.
Oh, it is, and I think it's Pfizer. Was it Pfizer CEO? The population. I'll have to look that up again. But I was looking at an article, recently, like, like people might say, well, what's behind all this? And it was like one of these, like Davos or something like that. I think it was, and it's alleged. I forget. I have to look up to get to quote this, but like I think it was at Davos, one of the meetings. Like the Pfizer CEO was talking about, like, we need to depopulate half the Earth's population and stuff like that. So these guys they're very serious about what they're trying.
No, come on, man. He was saying 50% of the world won't have access to medicines, and those 50% that don't have the medicines won't live.
Okay, so that's what
he didn't
said.
say exactly like that.
Is that how he put? Okay, so that's what I was saying. I didn't quite exactly. I was
But
reading
same but different is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's the same but different. Yeah, I was looking for it right now. I just couldn't find the article. But when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, like, really? Okay, well, so far people who have access to your medications aren't doing so well. So maybe that 50% is who lives. Anyway, but a cool article right now at Zero Hedge is tip poorly. 80% of delivery drivers admit to stealing customers' food.
I saw that one. I didn't get a chance to read. I was laughing though.
Yeah, and it was saying, it says the survey was conducted by Circuit Route Planner, a mobile navigation app for drivers. Looking at DoorDash, Postmates, Grubhub, and Uber Eats, of the drivers surveyed, 80% admitted to eating customers' deliveries, while 23 purposely damaged packages, 17% stole food, and 17% resealed boxes. Holy crap! I mean, and the thing is, to me, if you want to, okay, people are looking for, signs of hyperinflation. I would say, well, there's one right there. I don't think that that's something people do just for, okay, there's going to be some people who do it for spite, but in general, that is, I think, desperation. People are doing those jobs because they know they can literally skim some off the top and make enough gas money to keep doing it. I would say really that is a, acts of desperation when it comes to crime aren't necessarily, only people who are living in extreme poverty, who are, drug addicted, etc., who are like stealing catalytic converters and things like that. Every class, every socioeconomic class has their crime. And so that to me is an emerging and getting extreme, socioeconomic level of crime that I have not really seen before. It's somewhat surprising to me, for sure.
Wouldn't somebody call the restaurant and go, "Hey, I only got 9 chicken wings instead of 10. What happened?" And then
I know. Well,
somebody driving a Japanese Beetle and nibbling on my stuff.
Well, I know. Well, that's the thing. If you are, if you're just grabbing if you're just grabbing a little thing here and a little thing there from a bunch of deliveries, no one's probably going to notice. And then if you're that desperate, if you're doing that out of desperation, maybe you're taking some of that stuff home for people to eat. Well, maybe you're just willing to take that risk. I mean, people can become very, very skilled at crime. They certainly can. I bet you there's people who can, snag, 200 calories of your pizza and you won't even know. I mean,
cheese just dripped in the right place. Wow, there's a gap right there.
Yeah.
They're bringing their own knife with them, and they're not using their fingers. They're bringing their own utensils.
Mm-hmm. So I bet that very well could be happening, definitely. So yeah, we're seeing signs of a lot of that everywhere. Like one thing I see is, and this is a great reason to belong to Nextdoor or other apps like that, is ambulances everywhere.
Everywhere. I'm seeing them so much. It's unbelievable. Like there's not one time you can drive anymore that you don't see at least one, sometimes 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah. And
lights are flashing. It's unbelievable. Yeah, there's a lot of changes going on here. I was talking to a contractor friend of mine because we're trying to work on our fence out here, and he was telling me the reason I knew of all these close downs of like electrical production in East Tennessee, because he was telling me that, when they're out there and they're putting in a neighborhood, that usually some sort of transformer is going to be on a pad somewhere. That's the entry point for that current going into the neighborhood, that it can be turned off. There's a fire with some. They used to be like $1,500, but now they're $15,000 in a 20-week lead time. But some of these things just are not coming back. And he was saying the habits of people have changed, especially knowing that on business ends of things, that things just aren't there anymore. And going back to these chapters of history, if you can't build something, everything gets knocked backwards. And then, the thing is that when people aren't going to get their inputs, especially for the factories and whatever, they're going to start laying people off. Because like, let's say you have a huge Kellogg's factory, but it can't get the wheat because we lost 40% production wheat, and there's not enough rail transport or barge transport to get it to their factories. And they're not running, they're going to lay the people off, and it's just going to add to it. And then we're going to get into this feedback loop here. And I was trying to play off something you said, Craig, but I kind of forgot what it was. But it led into that right there. I was just going to continue to grow this whole, how resourceful are people going to get nibbling onto your food? And at what point is that taking your home delivery turn into breaking the window delivery, breaking in the window to get the food?
Oh, exactly. And that's that's the thing. One of the things that's becoming prevalent is Apple Dots, the little GPS trackers you can get, little Apple Dot. It's now a problem that the police here are running into is that they can target your nice car, figure it's going to a nice home, they can see where you're shopping, they can hang out in Whole Foods parking lot and just put dots on cars. They're magnetic. You know what I'm saying? Then they just watch and see where it is. So something to think about, if you just load it up on food, especially at a place that is posh, right? And now you're driving home, you pull up to your garage, somebody may have just basically GPS tracked you right to your door. So there you go. It's the thing about crime like that. When you're talking about, we can call it nibbling, right? All they got to do is run up, stick a gun in your face, and grab your groceries, and off they go. And that would be, a socioeconomic level of crime, that maybe we have
They
not
stole your
seen
groceries.
before. They stole your groceries, And then, of course, if you are in a city that is almost any city, but especially a city, if you're in Seattle, Portland, New York, whatever, Chicago, don't even call the cops, right? Like, they don't care. Are you shot? Are you dead? Okay, whatever. They don't have the resources, not to mention their DAs probably really don't care. So yeah, there's a lot going on. I think it's a time really where, thank heavens if you've been prepping for a while and you have a plan and you're aware of these things, because if nothing else, as like the shithouse catches on fire and bursts into flames, at least you kind of can go, I get what's happening. I understand what's happening. And, we'll see how it turns out. I mean, for me, it's really wild, but a great thing was watching that, A Fall of Civilizations, because you just realize that, well, maybe we're due. And if we're due, then that's the way it goes. And some will make it and some will not. And maybe there is no safe place to be. There's better places to be, but no perfect places to be, And if I don't know. I'm not excited about the disaster. It really sucks when you watch it. But, it's almost like one of the most difficult times when I was in the military was when you were waiting for the fight. Like, once it started, it was a blessing. You were like, thank God, you're in it. But it's waiting. It's knowing that it's inevitable. That is the psychologically difficult part. And so I think right now, all of us that are ready are on our tippy toes. We're leaning forward. We're ready to lunge into that fight. We're just waiting. And the waiting is way more stressful than the battle once it gets here. So at least for myself, I'm like, could we just get it on? But then I look at the news and the world, you hear the ambulances and you go, I think it started. I think the battle started and it's around us right now. Like, what is with all those ambulances? Because, I have my theory. I mean,
we have the same theory.
Yeah, it's probably very related to being a graphene zombie.
Or millimeter frequency waves.
Millimeter frequency waves. Well, as somebody saw on YouTube, was a great video. The guy was just conjecturing about. He had a ton of links he was looking at, but basically he called them graphene golems. As in, with that basically, antenna, with that metallic antenna that you put into the body and the millimeter waves. Now you have golems, those beings that can be sent a program to do, and he was, I'll send it to you sometime. I'll find it again.
I'd like to watch it. I'm interested in this, on how these two technologies are going to blend with the regular mind as we move through these food shortages. I mean, how do you distract yourself between this kind of waiting game and things kicking off? I mean, are you looking at diatomaceous clay and nematodes? I mean, how are you spending your time? Are you, nibbling your fingernails to the bone, waiting for it to get on? Because I really, if we can stave off those days, I'd prefer that to getting in. Because once it goes, man, it's going to cascade down off a vertical cliff. There's no coming back from that, society-wise.
Yeah, and I think, at least for myself, I know what I do is have a list. Have like your preparedness list. I mean, which can almost seem almost feeble when you look at what's ahead, but I have a list, and you just work on crossing it off. Whether it's like get a generator, get propane. Do you have a propane tank? I mean, for everybody, it's very, very different. It could be move my location, whatever it is, but there's always actionable items you can do, and avoid that feeling of hopelessness. If there's, I mean, because I would say, like, I've been working on preparedness for a decade, and I'm still not there yet. I'm still not as ready as I'd like to be. I'm still not living my ideal off the grid life, but I've been working on it. And I would just say to people, working on it, no matter where you're at in the process, is always going to be empowering 1,000% more, good than bad. And, visualize the end, have a desire, and maybe have steps in between, like a bridge of accomplishments between now and your ultimate ideal. But if you can some way work on it and don't feel hopeless, everything is good. Storable food is good. Making alliances with people where you can escape to their greater property, which is in a better area, when you need to, if you need to, and such like that. There's something everybody can be doing. I think part of it is just don't get, if you're not where you want to be, really avoid the feelings of hopelessness, because if nothing else, I mean, well, I don't want to say be happy with the time you have left, right? I don't want to put it like that, but the motivating power and the positive energy that crossing a few things off a list a week can offer is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. That's one of my ways of staying sane, and it also keeps me moving in a positive direction. And when I keep adding things to the list, but I keep seeing how things overall over time do get crossed off, and I get closer to that goal of being where I want to be, I can see that progression. I can feel positive, and I can just realize, wow, you know what, in the last year I am like 25% closer, like, in 2022 so far, I am, 25% closer to that goal this year. You know what I mean? And even that awareness, even that movement, that crossing off the list towards that, self-reliance, towards, being in the right place at the right time as all of this unfolds, it's going to keep you out of despair. It's going to keep you from not worrying about it so much. And also, I think something that helps is we all keep an eye on the news. We all do look at what's going on in the world, and there's a validity to that. But in the end, what difference does it make at this point? You need to get ready. Have your plans, work on things, think about it. Whether you're planting fruit trees on your farm, or whether you're, however you're dealing with being in a city and how are you going to get out of it. Work on your plan, and you will not, I guarantee it'll keep you out of despair. It really will.
Yeah, and then conversations like this are like, well, why even bother? Might as well get the digital rationing card. At least I'll have food, and then I won't have to do all the work to get the food. I swear I see people doing that. They're like, well, why would I work to grow the food if I can just get it for free from the government every week? Like, what? Hold on a minute. This is jumping the shark. We're not talking about EBT cards here. We're talking about you starve because you didn't have food and there's not any in the supermarket. But you think that's more going to be worth it to jump on the side of darkness to get into the digital rationing cards or whatever, because you didn't want to go put your fingers in the soil and actually grow food for yourself. I mean, people are willing to trade off that easiness. It's such a lazy society anymore. I just don't know how people are going to deal with a lot of the things. They can barely even deal with being called a wrong name or something. I mean, when we were kids, we called that joking. But now, like, you call it. I watched the craziest video. I'm not even going to talk about it. I don't want to ruin my mood. It was just there. It was comical at the end of it. I actually watched it and I thought, no, this can't be real. It was a college professor that got into a battle with somebody doing a mind experiment out in front of a building, and then it just turned into this craziest clown show. And I was like, no, but it's the real, a state of college campuses across the U.S. Like the one woman runs down and go, you didn't have a psychological counselor on here. even though you're doing your experiment and it has no outcome in anything of any awards or anything with grades, it's just because they might think about it wrong, and they might be they might not something whatever the colloquial phrases they're using now. They need to have somebody on site because they might have a breakdown because they chose wrong or something. I'm like, what, dude? No, that's too much, really. Like you need a psychological counselor on that because you made a wrong choice, possibly on some psychological experiment where there's no correct answer, that you need a psychological counselor there to get that because you might break down because you chose wrong when there's no right choice. Like that's what's going to happen when things get real. I just don't know how a lot of the society is going to be able to move through the mind. I got to call it a minefield. Because it's kind of what it looks like it's going to be.
A minefield is a good way to look at it, No, I wanted the same thing. Well, one of the things that I always, strongly believe in is, like your health, your strength, and because there will be, as things go crazy and crazier, since you know what's going on, you're kind of like, when there's a fire and everybody is, panicking and there's smoke, like, where the exits are and you can start guiding people. So one of the things that I almost don't look forward to is, there will be a need for somewhat heroic people, and you'd be surprised at how, I think especially people listening to this, you might find that when a leader is needed, people might look at you. So one of the things I look at when it comes to not being in a state of despair during this is that, and some people might say I'm egotistical or whatever. That's fine. I am not an alpha personality in the slightest. But, I have a realization that I might be needed in all of this as really, I don't want to say a leader, but somebody who has some idea of what to do. Like when people in the neighborhood needed generators, who'd they come to? Me. You know what I mean? When people start figuring this out, like, you know what? I got a feeling, I've never really been a conspiracy theorist. I've always thought it was all nonsense, but I think they're going to kill us.
Oh, now you're playing a game of Clue.
Yeah,
and
I'm like, really? Okay, all right. Well, you're getting somewhere. I'm like, you're right. They do want to kill us, but you did miss it. You did miss the part where they really want us to suffer a lot before we die. So, anyways.
Yeah, it's like a game. It's almost like chess played out in real time on. Give more credence to a lot of maps and games that I've seen through the last few decades, There's one particular map I'm looking at more and more. It's about it's a sustainable development map where there's human habitation zones, and the areas in red are where no humans can be, and the areas of yellow, and there's another color, like yellow is limited, where I am, kind of like farming community, and then there's huge swaths of the country, like half, where nobody's allowed to go at all. And, this makes sense where they might try to digitize a forest and give a price to the forest for carbon sequestration on a per acre basis yearly, but nobody could be in there and trampling down anything or cutting any trees, because then you would, disturb the value that was set for that many trees sequestering this much carbon per year. Like if you set off half the world's, it could be even half the world, but half the U.S. forest, half of Canada's forest, nobody allowed in at all, and then suddenly it's revalued as a CO2 sequestration platform, and it's a new pillar of the economy along with gold and silver and cryptocurrency. But then you're going to get your personal carbon allocation credits from that. So you can see how everything kind of moving in tandem. They're going to make it real tough. They're going to make it non-enjoyable. So you want to switch to a new system because there will be something at the new system, but the old system, they want to work it so everything dries up out of this system we're currently living in. I mean, down to zero where you starve or what, they're going to make it incredibly difficult. You live in the dark, you live in the cold, you starve if you stay in the old system, which is the one we're in now. But if you jump to the new system where there's central bank digital currency and all these rationing cards, dude, there's food over here. Just come over and get the food, and we're giving you free money too. Come on. So where does it stop? Oh, and by the way, yeah, if you're going to want to buy anything from that point forward, if If you don't have enough carbon credits, you're going to have to go buy them on the open market, and then you can buy the item because that much CO2 was produced while producing that item.
And if
anything you
anybody,
buy from this point forward, you're going to have to get out and go buy those carbon credits somehow and get them. So you're going to be incredibly limited on what you can get as a physical good, because each physical good purchased will have a carbon footprint with it. So if your personal allocation credit is like 8 per month and you want to get an iPhone and it costs 12 carbon credits, you're going to have to go out on the open market and buy 3 more somehow, and then save up and squirrel away all the central bank digital currency credits you already have and try to get 12. See, and then they can program the money so it disappears at the end of the month, and you could never get those carbon credits to buy the thing, except what they would deem as, okay, this is a 1 carbon credit thing. You can get it, sir, if you get a little treat. Everybody can get one of those. But any of the big ticket stuff is going to be very limited on how many carbon credits you have on the personal allocation.
And
you can go buy more.
Yeah.
It'll be out
who
there. Now,
decides the value?
I'm wondering if jumping into Moss right now. So let me ask you, this is a crypto question. Like knowing that the carbon credits are going to go to this direction, like Moss is it's a cryptocurrency in itself, MOSS. It's like a green agenda, clean mining, and they also sell carbon credits on there. But again, if you bought carbon credits from Moss, would they still be valid when coming into the new system to cash in carbon credits? I'm not sure.
You know what? That would actually be a great thing to start looking at, would be cryptos to buy, or what to buy that that will work in this new economy that's being built. Because one thing about the carbon credits is who decides how many carbon credits something costs. I mean, ultimately, things that call them the globalists do not want. And anybody who's listening to listens to the whole Davos thing, listening to Mr. Schwab and some of the executives, and I forget the lady who was saying free speech needs to be redefined. Oh my God. It's like, if you listen to these monsters and you look at the power that they have, anybody that thinks this is not coming, I'm not being a doomsayer, but without radical change, I'm talking like guillotines, chainsaws, and wood chippers, it's going to happen. So pretty much make ready, right? And I think that it would be a great thing. I'll start looking at that. Like when I look at my little like crypto daily, I'm going to start making that something, and maybe I'll do something separate. Actually, would be a daily or a weekly or something like that, but a podcast, and some notes on cryptos that you see functioning in the new economy, like VeChain is one of them. I think is a good possibility. VeChain is supply line tracking. That one's doing quite well. I have not heard of Moss, but I can look into that. There's one called FoodCoin, FOOD, that gets into tracking from field to table, as they say. There's one called PNY, or Pony. It's PNY. That one is being used for tracking food distribution. So, and I don't know of Moss, like you mentioned, but things that are going to just be, there are cryptos. There's many that aren't quite mainstream yet, but like the blockchain has been created, the project has been created. And if one was looking into who funded it, especially, that would actually tell you a lot. So since you mentioned that, that's something I will start doing. Actually, I'm gonna make a note of that right now. And really, we want to look at a whole, great reset, thrive during and after the Great Reset. Yeah, because definitely investing in hard assets and cryptos and such could be a way. So that's a good angle to look at.
All right, Craig Simpson, Radiant Creators, joined me tonight. You can check out his website, radiantcreators.com, and his podcast also. DuByne signing off here. Radio Studio A every Thursday night, 10 p.m. to midnight. Thank you for your valuable time. Hope you got something out of our conversation. We'll see you next week.
Truth Jihad.
See ya.
Host of Truth Jihad Radio. Federal prosecutors, Department of